Hi, and welcome out to the second lesson in the Do-It-Yourself Learn to Play Piano course. Last time we talked about reading notes on the staff, and this time I'm gonna give you a little bit more practice with what we learned last time, actually reading notes on the treble clef and the bass clef. And then after that, I'll introduce some other introductory subjects before we get playing on the piano, such as finger numbers. With that said, let's get started. Okay, so we're going to talk about finger numbers. Now, it's important to know your finger numbers because often in piano music, the music will tell you to play a certain note with a certain finger. So while this is a very simple subject, it is important to go over. So we have two hands, and on each hand we have 5 fingers. Now, the important rule to remember when counting finger numbers is you always want to count from your thumb to your pinky. Thumb, no matter which hand you're talking about, is number 1. The next finger is going to be 2, 3, 4, and finger 5. And that's the same with the left hand and the right hand. Thumb to pinky, same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So remember that thumb's always going to be number 1, pinky's going to be number 5, and you always just count the fingers in between. Pretty simple. Now there is a little bit of confusion with this later on, which I will explain once we get playing on the piano. Alright, and that's the finger numbers explanation. Okay, so now that we know our lines and spaces of the treble clef and bass clef, we're going to do a little practice just on the treble clef for now to make sure that you get the idea and concepts. So let's pull out our first example here. Whenever you're looking at a note, you first want to ask yourself one or two questions. The first one is, am I on treble clef or bass clef? Well, I'd say that we are in treble clef. Remember, treble clef is that fancy looking G. And the second question you want to ask yourself is, are you on a line or a space? And looking at this one, I would say that we are on a line, and specifically we're on that first line. So, if you remember, your lines of the treble clef are E, G, B, D, and F, and always remember to count from the bottom line to the top line. And I would say that this example over to the right here, this is the first line. So let's take a look over here again. I would say that this note, or first line here, is an E. So therefore, when you see this, you know to play the note E. Alright, another example. Let's find one here. I think this one's a good one. Again, you want to ask yourself, treble clef or bass clef? I would say treble clef. And are you on a line or a space for this one? If you said line, then you are correct. And specifically, this one is on the second line up from the bottom. So you'll look over here with our paper, and our second one up from the bottom is going to be G. Alright, another example here. I think this one's a good one. There you go. And this one, treble clef or bass clef? I'd say treble. And this is it on a line or space? If you said space, you're correct. Specifically, it's on that first space. So we're actually going to be looking down here at the spaces of the treble clef this time. And you're going to look at the first one we have, which is going to be F. Alright, another one. I think this one's a good one for the next example. So treble clef or bass clef? Of course, treble clef. That's what we're working on right now. And is this one on a line or a space? Well, I would say that we're on a space. And let's see, 1, 2. We are on that third space up from the bottom. So over here, we're going to look at our paper. 1, 2, 3. So that note there is going to be a C. Alright, a couple more. So let's try this one. Here we have this one. Of course, treble clef. And this one I would say is on a line. And it's 1, 2, 3, that fourth line up from the bottom. We're looking over here at our lines of the treble clef. That line is D. So this note is going to be a D. Alright, last one. Here we go. this one, treble clef, space, and it's going to be that top space from the bottom, which, as we know, let's see, F, A, C, E. So this note is going to be an E. Alright, so there you have it, a little bit of practice with the treble clef and bass clef. You can feel free to pick up a pack of flashcards like the ones I have off the internet or Amazon, anywhere you can find them. Or I think there's a couple websites online that can help you with note reading that are really good resources. And I'll post links to those if I find them. Alright, so there you have it, the lines and spaces of the treble clef. Okay, so here we have the lines and spaces of the bass clef again. If you remember, the lines are G, B, D, F, and A, and the spaces are A, C, E, G. Knowing that, we're going to practice a little bit reading notes on the staff. Here is our first example. I'll throw up. There it is. So, like I said, one of the first two questions you want to ask yourself is, one, what clef are you looking at? Well, this one, since we're talking about bass clef, this is definitely the bass clef symbol. Funny looking comma with two dots after it. And if you remember, what is the second question you want to ask yourself? And if you said, am I on a line or a space, that would be correct. So here we are. We are on a line, I would say. And specifically, we're on the first line. We look over here to our lines and spaces. So we're looking at lines. So we're on that first line. So that note is going to be a G. Let's try another one. So here we have it, bass clef, and we're on a space, and we're on that first space. So we're going to be looking over here, spaces of the bass clef, and that's our note there. So that's the first space. So this note is an A. Let's see here. So think about it, treble clef or bass clef. And then line or space. So if you said bass clef space, you would definitely be correct. And this one is on the second space from the bottom. Remember, you always want to count from the bottom to the top. And in this case, this second space is going to be a C. So therefore, this note is C. Another one here. Here we go. All right. So bass clef, line, and we're on the third one up from the bottom. So we're going to be looking here, lines of the bass clef. So this note is going to be D. Feel free to pause the video at any time if you need any more, a couple more minutes to think about each of these examples. And you can always rewind through parts of the video as well. Let's try this one. Here we go. So think about it for a second, see if you can figure it out. So I would say this one, bass clef, top space, and so I know that this note is going to be a G. Okay, last one. Here we go. Think about it for a second. Alright, so here we have bass clef. We are definitely on a line. We're on that top line. And let me see here. There we go. So that we're going to be playing an A for this one. So in future videos, once we get playing on the piano, which should be pretty soon here, I'll show you where on the keyboard that these notes are actually played. So there you have it, the lines and spaces of the bass clef. So there you have it, lesson 2 out of the way. We talked about some very simple things, just as a review. We talked about finger numbers. So take a look back at parts of the video if you know you need some brushing up on that. Like I said, very simple thing, but very important to understand, so make sure you review that. And I gave you a little bit more experience reading notes on the treble and bass clef on the staff. Next lesson, we're going to talk about the staff a little bit more. I have a little bit more information to divulge to you, as well as finally finding notes on the piano. So finally we're getting over to the keyboard. We'll do that more and more every lesson. And before you know it, pretty soon, probably next 2 to 3 lessons, we'll be actually playing examples on the keyboard. So I hope you learned something. If not, if this stuff is still too easy for you, hang in there. Like I said, I wanted to start from the very beginning and then get more complicated for there so everybody can kind of join in and get on board. So like I said, if you're looking for something a little more complicated, just keep watching the videos. I promise we will get there. So like I said, I hope you learned something. Hope you had a good time. And I'll see you guys and girls next time. Thank you.